Hi everyone, Lisa Haven here. Well, what will America look like under a massively censored culture? Could we soon be headed into like Chinaville or George Orwell's 1984? And what happens when we get to that location? Well, what I want to do is talk about that and show you the style of censorship that we could be headed for in the very near future. But I want to show you a few reports first to show you how far we are going into censorshipville and how those in the uber top or uber elite, if you will, are attempting to censor us hardcore. I've already talked about how they've put multiple strikes on channels, on YouTube channels at once, specifically anyone who takes that conservative, Christian, patriotic nationalism slant. That is who the target is. It's not those of the socialist progressive left. They're allowed a scot-free ticket to do and say the things that they please, but they are trying to censor everyone hardcore. Check out this first report, and this is from Global Research. It's titled European Union Demands Google, Facebook Step Up Internet Censorship. Now, this report gets into detail how the EU is crying to the feet of Facebook and Google and Twitter saying, hey, we want to censor you hardcore, or saying you need to up your censorship on the internet. This is what the EU is telling them. And they're saying, but what we want you to censor is any terrorist activity or anything of that nature. Well, here's the thing, EU, they're basically already doing that to a level. So what's the real agenda here? Oh, I know. You want to censor people who have an anti-New World Order agenda. It's all about politics. They want to shut up and shut down anyone talking about anything that they're for. You talk about against the New World Order, well, then you've made the enemy list. You talk about nationalism or populism, then you've made their enemy list. This is who the EU really wants Google, Facebook, and Twitter to censor. It's not an even playing field. Also, here's another report that I want to show you, and this one is from New York Times. China presses its internet censorship efforts across the globe. This one details how China, who we already know censors their people hardcore, they want to make this global, because Xi Jinping already said he wanted to be a president forever, amen. This is something they're actually putting on the table, and he's swiping out, if you will, but he's the guy that's in bed with Apple. I'm going to show you that report again. I reported that earlier, but also Facebook and multiple others, in order to massively censor, because hey, after all, China has freedom of the internet. No, actually, they have no freedom on the internet. The freedom that they have is jack. They get nothing. They have to use a VPN in order to sideswipe anything that the government wants to push across. So China-style censorship is not something we want here in America, because they're not even legally allowed to use things like Facebook or look up YouTube channels such as mine, anything that talks in opposition to their leadership. Here's another report, and this one is from Natural News, and this one's headline, Election Interference Alert. Google, YouTube now blatantly trying to steal the 2018 election. Now that report gets into how Google and the like are attempting to silence the conservative patriotic nationalism side in order to push a political agenda on their platforms. How is that for free speech? That's freedom of nothing. This is the opposite of freedom when you're pushing one political agenda over another. Here's another report, and this is by The Verge.com, and this is one that I've already spoken up and one that I've already brought up, but I want to re-bring it back up. And its headline, Apple officially moves its China iCloud operations and encrypted keys to China. In other words, Apple, our big phone and computer group, is now in bed with China. Yeah, great, wonderful. Meaning, Apple just gave their stamp of approval to China's Xi Jinping and said, hey, it's okay to censor our people. It's okay to do whatever the heck you want. And we will give you all the email, all the data, all the information that you want, Xi Jinping, to the government. If people send an email, that's the government can see that. If people like certain posts or anything of that nature, Apple will give all that information to the government there in China. So forget about the freedom of the Chinese people, Apple. You just gave it all to the political monster head there in China. How's that for freedom of speech? It's not at all. It's Apple saying, we're going to give all your data away to a communist dictator so he can do with that data what he wills. Never mind the fact that he kills hundreds of journalists and imprisons them quite often. Let's just forget about that. That's a side issue. So what will America look like under mass censorship? We're talking China-style censorship, if not worse. Well, imagine George Orwell's 1984 book come to life, or a version of it. In this version, you will go to your computers, you will go to your laptops, go on the Google and Facebooks and Twitter sites, and you will look up some of the things like your favorite YouTube channels, such as Lisa Haven or Michael Savage or InfoWars or the Economic Collapse blog, doesn't matter which one, because they have all now been wiped and scrubbed and gone. All videos, all documents, all reports. Why? Because they only want the New World Order agenda. Any national patriotic Christian website has been taken down and silenced. Any Christian websites that reference anything negative about homosexuality or anything of that nature have been scrubbed and taken down. Any and all. That is the kind of censorship that you're looking into. Therefore, when you look and Google things on the internet or research things over the internet, one-sided opinions will pop up and one-sided alone. Therefore, you are highly probable, or you are more susceptible, I will say, to the brainwashing techniques of those technocrats, if you will, those pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Imagine turning on your television sets to watch the daily news and you're inundated with fake news, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, and the like, all with the same punchline, all with the same information, all with the same agenda and political slant. That when something happens in your community, no longer will the local news be the head of it. They will be there to some aspect, but they will be given scripted things to say. For example, if there was an unfortunate event like a shooting or some kind of mass casualty, they will be given the anti-gun agenda to push. This is why we don't have guns. This is why we need to take away and pass more legislation against guns and do it yesterday. So we could kiss under this kind of censorship style our guns goodbye. There will be no more freedom of Second Amendment. There will be no First Amendment, right? Because everything has already been taken away. One political view has been gone and one paraded above the other. Also, imagine your children in your schools, in your colleges, all with brainwashed professors, because no one can get a job if you're a nationalist or a patriot, because if you push that kind of agenda in the schools, then you are immediately fired. But if you push the progressive socialist communist agenda, then they will push you right up to the tippy top and increase your minimal amount of pay. But under this kind of censorship style, if it's all one manipulation and all one control, you can guarantee that it won't be your normal style of living, but you will have a poor class of people. It will not be a middle class. There will be no middle class, because that is not the ultimate end game of those on the left. And many on the left don't even realize that this is the kinds of things they're pushing. They think there's some kind of happy utopian socialistic style, which never, ever, ever exists. Move to Venezuela if you want to be a socialist. Get the hell out of America, because socialism is not something that has ever been pretty in any time frame. And excuse me for being bold, but that is the way I feel. If you are that kind of pushing those policies, go somewhere and live there for a while, then come back and tell me if you like the socialist way of living, because I can guarantee you history shows the exact opposite of what is being pushed by many on the very far left. But that is the crazy future that we could be looking at if we continue on the path of censorship. All those things will be gone. Your children, it takes about 12 to 15 years to brainwash a generation. Your children will be brainwashed in the schools, and it will be further promoted by the colleges. It's already something that's going on to a level. But now we have the freedom to stand in the information gap and fight back. How are we doing that? By spreading the videos here, by spreading videos on multiple outlets, not just mine, others. If not mine, spread someone else's that is getting the message out that you want to be gotten out. Or start creating your own videos. Call your congressmen, senators. Stand for your First Amendment and your Second Amendment, all your amendment rights. We need to stand in that gap before we lose it and before things are too late. There's definitely headway and being made on these things, but the great news is people are attempting to stop it. Check out this report or tweet, I would say, from Donald Trump's 2020 campaign manager, Brad Pascal. He says, hey, Facebook, Twitter, and Google, we are watching. This is your opportunity to make sure the playing field is level. Hashtag MAGA. Thank you, Brad. Because here's what we need to do. We need to make sure that people who are in the ranks of government, in the ranks of leadership, because there's good leadership and bad leadership. It's in everything. Good people at your work, bad people at your work. It's everywhere, right? And I'm all for good leadership that's standing for the freedom of the American people, that stand for our first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and all of our amendment rights. That is what I'm for. That is who I will stand with. So thank you, Brad, and please continue to stop the censorship. Let's up that and get it pinched in the butt, if you will. Anyhow, don't forget to check out my partner at noblegoldinvestments.com. You need to make sure you are converting your 401ks into like a Roth IRA, something a little more solid. It can be backed by gold. Your IRAs can be backed by Bitcoin. This is all kinds of things that you can find at noblegoldinvestments.com. There's also a phone number. I encourage you guys to call them and make sure you are putting your assets in something other than just the dollar, because the dollar, well, it could very well be headed in a not so good direction. You got a little more backing with gold and Bitcoins and things like that. So call Noble Gold Investments today to check that out. Anyhow, thanks again for tuning in. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.